The madhab of Imam Malik rahimahullah, I mean the usul of Imam Malik is also built on what is known as saddu dhara'i'. It's amazing. Saddu dhara'i', as Imam Abu Ishaq al-Shatibi mentions in his Muwafaqat, saddu dhara'i' means to ban something because of what it's going to lead to. So this thing is it's not haram. Nothing's wrong with this thing. But it gets banned because it's going to lead to something. So it gets banned because of what it's going to lead to. But in and within itself it's not banned. There's nothing wrong with it. But because it's going to lead to something, it gets prevented. Malikiyya, when it comes to sadd al-dhara'i', Malikiyya, when it comes to sadd al-dhara'i', they yatawassa'una fiha, they go far in. And they'll ban something because of what it's gonna lead to. ولذلك the definition of what sadd al-dhara'i' is, I'm going to give you the kalam of Abu Abdullah al-Qurtubi in his tafsir, and I'm also going to give you al-Imam al-Qarafi. Al-Qarafi again is a great Maliki scholar, and he's got a kitab on al-Qawa'id al-Ahkam fi Masalih al-Anam. It gives you the understanding of the madhab of Imam Malik rahimahullah. He has a kitab, another kitab called Al-Furuq, where he talks about Al-Furuq al-Fiqhiyya. Al-Imam al-Qarafi rahimahullah. Abu Abdullah al-Qurtubi says, الذريعة عبارة عن أمر غير ممنوع لنفسه يخاف من ارتكابه الوقوع في ممنوع. So it's something that's not prohibited, but it's only prohibited because it's going to lead to something. I'll give an example. A man looks at a woman for marriage. Is he allowed to look at her? But outside marriage, what is he told? So, because outside, if he's not intending to get married to her, outside marriage, he's not allowed to look at her. But now that he wants to get married to her, he can look at her. The Sharia is looking at what it's going to lead to, because the look itself, in and within itself, is not prohibited. It's only prohibited because of what's going to lead to. Are we all together, brothers? Allah says, for example, another ayah, وَلَا تَصُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَصُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Do not insult those people, the disbelievers. Don't insult them. Don't ridicule them. Don't shame them. Why? Because this is going to lead to them insulting Allah and His Messenger. But insulting them in and within itself is not mamnu'. But because it's going to lead to this, it's what? It's stopped and it's prohibited. Are we all together, brothers? So the Sharia will ban things because of what it leads to. Even though that thing is what? It's not haram. But it's going to lead to something. Pay attention to this now. Malikiyya, they do that to so many things. They'll say, this is not allowed because it's going to lead to this. Stop it. It's haram. Like now, other madhahibs have become more on this issue of saddu dhara'i'. And I feel like if you look at the fatawa, the mutaakhirin, the Hanabila today, have become more in saddu dhara'i' than the Malikiyya. The current fatawa from the Hanabila is more in saddu dhara'i' than I've seen in the Malikiyya. Also, from the usul of the Malikiyya is another mas'ala known as al-masalih al-mursala. So from the usul of the Malikiyya, it's called what? Al-masalih al-mursala. Masalih al-mursala, I mentioned it previously. And I mentioned the fatwa of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. At the time of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, the ruler in fi nihari Ramadan, in the month of Ramadan, he had intimacy with one of his slaves. And then he freed a slave. And then he had another, the next day he had an intimacy with another slave. And he freed the slave. So Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi said, freeing the neck of a slave is meant to be a struggle for someone. That's why the Sharia put it there. You have to struggle and free a slave. But because this slave has because this ruler has so many slaves, he can, fi nahari Ramadan, he's going to do it and it's going to cause many problems. So what should it be? We're going to move from the first, because the first thing he has to do is fast, free a slave, right? And then after that, he has to do what? Fast. He said we're going to move on to the second. We're going to tell him to fast how many months? 2 consecutive months, right? That's a punishment for him. But the Sharia didn't do that. The Sharia organized it in this manner. But he's saying the maslaha is that he is told to fast 2 consecutive months because it's hard for him. And that's when he's going to feel it. And when he feels it, he's not going to do it. Is this allowed? Does that make sense? This is what the Malikiyya use. It's called masalih al-mursala. The masalih is three types. There's a masalih mu'tabara, masalih mulghat, and then the third one which they believe, which is masalih mursala. Masalih mu'tabara is the masalih that the Sharia mentioned. Sharia mentioned this. And there's masalih which is mulghat. The Sharia ignored it and tossed it. It's mulghat, rejected. For some people it might look like a maslaha, but the Sharia didn't give any consideration to that. Sah? And some people might come and say, but there's a benefit in it. Is غير معتبرة. Does that make sense? Example of that is alcohol. The ayah mentions Allah تبارك يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. The Sharia did not give any consideration to what? The benefits that are in alcohol. Does that make sense? So this is a maslaha which is mulghat. The Malikiyya say, but there's a third type of maslaha that's not mu'tabara wala mulghat. It's maslaha mursala. It came about later. This is a dispute about this issue, and it's for another time, inshallah ta'ala. But this is from their madhab. From their madhab, usul al-madhab is mura'atul khilaf. They add it into their evidence to take into consideration difference of opinion. Okay? And that's another discussion for that. They also use another thing called al-istihsan. Al-istihsan. Okay? Istihsan in simple terms is when a mujtahid turns away from qiyas which is jali and he goes towards a qiyas which is khafi. He leaves a qiyas which is apparent and he goes to a qiyas which is very small. And this one, which is the one Imam Shafi'i was very against. Shafi'i used to say, Man istahsana faqad sharra. Anyone who brings istihsan, he is legislated. Am lahum shuraka shara'u lahum min ad-din ma lam ya'dhan bihi Allah. So Shafi'i was against it. Okay? This, my brothers and sisters, is the usul al-madhab al-maliki. This is what their madhab is based on. Now I'm going to go into the riwayatul muwatta wa ruwatuha. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to start the first one. But before I move on, is everybody with me? Yeah? The last usul is called al-istihsan. In the chapter of qiyas, there's a qiyas which is jaliyun and there's a qiyas which is khafi. I don't want to talk about it because I'm going to come to it later, inshallah ta'ala. A qiyas khafi is a hidden analogy. It's very hidden. Some usulina, they call it amrun juz'iyun. It's a subsidiary issue. You give precedence to the qiyas which is khafi, the hidden qiyas, over the what? The qiyas which is jali, the apparent qiyas. You give precedence to the qiyas which is khafiyun over a qiyas which is jali. Or in another term, as Ibn Arafah and others said, is taking amrun juz'iyun over a dalilun kulliyun. And we're going to talk about that inshallah ta'ala. I told you this one, and Imam al-Shafi'i was totally against it, rahimahullah ta'ala, and he didn't agree with this one. Now, I'm going to go into the muwatta, this muwatta that we have.